Hey guys, it's Rick here with Shadow Productions, and today I thought I'd show you how to make your own depth map. There's a lot of tutorials online showing you how to download a 3D model of a depth map and turn that into a terrain like in Element 3D, but none of them really show you how to make your own, so I'm going to show you how to do that today. So first thing you want to do is open up an image program like Photoshop or whatever you've got. Create you a new file. I like making mine about 2K files, which is 2000 by 2000. You also want to set your resolution way up to about 300. You can make this bigger and make bigger maps, but just keep in mind that the bigger they are, the bigger your file size is going to be, and it gets pretty big pretty fast. So we'll create this and call this depth map. And now we've got a blank file, so what we want to do is make sure we got our opacity up to 100%. Change this to black, and then use our bucket tool and just fill it all in. Alright, once we've got it filled in, we'll go ahead and switch over to white. Make sure it's completely white. Come up to the brush tool, and here we want to make sure that we've got it, the hardness all the way down to 0. We want to make sure the opacity on the brush is down to about 1%. We can maybe go 2%. So then, with the depth map, black is the lowest, white is the highest. So you want to avoid going pure black to pure white, or you're going to have a straight up and down wall, which isn't very natural. So we want to do gradual increases in height. So what we want to do is just start around the edge. Just hold the mouse button down to make sure it's nice and even. And get it, and then we'll come in here and fill the center in. That'll make sure that we don't have any flat spots. Then we want to come in just a little bit more. Go ahead and fill this in. And it's alright if you don't get it 100% filled in. That'll just create slight changes in the terrain. And we'll just keep doing this, bringing it in further and further. You can adjust it until you're happy with the progression of it. So let's say right there it'll look pretty decent. So next thing we want to do is come down here to 3D, and come in here to the new mesh from layer, depth map to plane. It's going to take a second depending on your computer. It switches over to 3D view. Alright, from here we can see what's going on with it. So if we come over here to them, let's see. So if we come over here to the orbit tool, make sure that we're on it, we can move around and look at it. So you can see this is a super simple map that we just created, raising the terrain. So we'll just press Control Z a few times. Control Alt Z, sorry. We'll back out to our depth map. So let's take and make this a little bit taller this time. So we'll get back on our brush tool. Make sure we're on the layer. And now we'll make it a little taller. And actually make it a little bit more interesting too. So what we can do is go ahead and we'll make a plateau up here for everybody to stand on. Once you're at pure white, you should be about the tallest. And then we'll start making graduations and color coming out. And if you find that it's taking too many clicks, too many passes, you can always up your opacity and turn it back down. So maybe double this. But it also makes it harder to get accurate control of the color too. But you can kind of see how it looks like a 3D object when you're looking at it with these graduations. So right now basically we're just going to have a big flat spot on top of a mountain. And we'll try to get rid of all this black. And of course if you want changes in that, you can go back to black, add some, you can add like a little dip in the middle of the mountain right here. And now we'll have like a little crater on top of our hill. So we'll go back to 3D mesh from layer, depth map to plane. And now you can see it's a lot more pronounced on the orbit tool. Here you can see what we created. So it does take a little bit of practice to get used to drawing like this, but you can always press Ctrl Alt Z if you're on Windows, back out, and make changes to your depth map until you're happy with it. So with this, I think I'm just going to make it a little bit wider. Yeah, so make sure you're on your layer. I think I'm just going to make sure I'm on white, and widen this top out just a little bit more. That way crater's not sticking out the side of the top. You can see it filled in the center just a little bit. That's not a real big deal, but we'll do that just to make sure it's nice and even. Alright, so now that it's wide and white, we'll try this one more time. Alright, so now that looks a lot better. Got almost a volcano type thing going. So you can come in here and texture it from here if you want. Using the brush tool, changing to, let's say, like a dark brown, for example. Turn the opacity way up. And you'll see we're actually painting texture onto the depth map. So when you're in this mode, you'll have to go back to your pointer to get back to this, and you want to rotate a little bit. Back to the brush. Make sure we've got everything. And of course you can take and do this in layers, create shadows, whatever you want to do. Or changes in terrain. Like you can turn this way down. And you can see it's creating slow changes in the texture color. So with something like this right here, it'll just break it up just a little bit. Alright. So once we're happy with that, we can take so we can take and click on 3D and export 3D layer. And since we're going to element 3D with this, I'm going to save it as an OBJ. and you can save your scene and your textures. And we can just save the textures as a JPEG. And then click OK. It'll ask us where to save it. So I'll take this and put it in my tutorials folder. We'll just call this Volcano. Save it. Alright guys, and now once we're in After Effects, we can take, and the first thing we want to do when we're After Effects, if you don't already know, is make sure you're on at least 16 bits. If you've got enough RAM and a good enough video card, you can set it to 32. You also want to set your workspace to HDTV Rec 709 and linearize it. This will just make sure that it looks good on any TV that watches it. And so now that we've done that, we'll just go ahead and create a new comp. And we're just going to make this a 1080 comp. We're going to create a new solid. We'll call this E3D. And here we'll go to the Effects panel, add element. Once it's loaded up, we'll go into the scene setup, come up here to where it says import, and then we'll go to where we put the model. So here's our volcano object. Import that. We'll use auto normals too. And here, which one of the problems I have with Element is that it doesn't like importing OBJ textures a lot of times. So first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and orient this right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this to 0 for that matter. But we do need to take and orient it to where it's flat, and we'll just do this on -90. Alright. So that looks a little bit better. Go ahead and raise this up. So if your materials didn't come in, you can come down here to the thing and grab your texture, which I've got the Pro Shaders on here, so I'll just add a quick Pro Shader to it. We'll say just Dirt 1 to it. And now you have a real simple terrain created from a depth map. If you want it to have a little bit more resolution in the texture that you added to it, you can also come over here under the Volcano tab, come over to the UV mapping and turn up the UV repeat. So you'll notice there's a lot of big dips and stuff in that hot, and that's from using a high opacity when I was painting it in. You get a lot of changes in color, or a lot of changes in height based on the color. So then if we change this to a light like sunset or something like that, you can see, and of course you can finalize that. Come to group 1 that is in, increase the size of it. Create a camera. We'll just keep it at 35mm. And then on the unified camera tool, take and just move it around until you're happy with it. Right now this object's still pretty small, we could scale it up a lot. And to get that realistic look that a lot of you want, you want to create lights. So here we'll create one with a slightly warm look, kind of like a evening sun. So we'll give it about that kind of tint. Turn the intensity down to something normal. And we'll try 100% to start with. One thing to help it too is if you change to the top view, it makes it a little bit easier to adjust your light. So we'll kind of have it coming from the side at an angle. You can also lower your height a little bit too and give it more of an evening type look. And once you're happy with that, and come over here to the Element 3D layer, collapse all this down. Under render settings, make sure that you have shadows on. And if you've got a good graphics card, you can turn on ray traced. It looks a lot better. Ambient occlusion, do ray traced on it. And then from here, we can just set up a simple camera move. So say, we'll use this camera for the end of it. So under camera, transform, set your position and orientation. Come back to the start, and then find you a good starting point. So we'll pan over this way. Preview that. And that'll be alright. And beyond that, for further realism, you can get into just basic compositions. And once you've thrown a background image behind it, take and make it a 3D layer. Press AA to turn off accept lights. Obviously bring it back open. For our transform tools, just adjust the orientation to the square of the camera. Scale it up a bit. Here we'll have to straighten that up some. Raise the position. Push it way back in Z space. And just adjust the position until it fits. Scale it again. So now, here we can see it needs to scale up some more. Raise it a little bit more. And you can kind of get the idea. Just make sure you go all the way to the end of your move, and just make sure that your scale is big enough to cover it. And actually, the background's still moving a little bit too fast, so I'm going to push it back even further. Holding shift, you can speed it up a lot. We're going to pan that up a lot. And kind of see how that works. And of course, to make it more realistic as well, you come into your camera and change your focus distance, aperture and such. And another quick tip before I go, if you go to your Element 3D layer, if you come down here to output, you've got composite. You can change this to focus, and you'll see exactly what's in focus when you come to your camera. So the focus distance, which we do it this way, under camera options, your focus distance, as you pull it in, you'll see the white part here is what's actually in focus. If it goes completely black, you're out of focus. So you want to put where you want it to be the crispest. And if you're not happy with the level of blur in the background, you can either raise the aperture pixels, which effectively lowers the f-stop, or you can increase the blur level, but you don't want to get too carried away with it or it looks unrealistic. So we'll leave it about like that. Come to E3D, composite. And if you've lost what your f-stop is, you can look here and see that's a little bit high. You can change it this way too, something a little bit more realistic, like a 1.2. And there you get a lot more realistic camera blur. Alright, so that about does it. If you guys have any questions, like to see another tutorial, just hit me up in the comments, let me know. Hope you enjoyed this and learned something. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.